make wealthy patients pay for the NHS? The number's 0207 862 2222. Wealthier Brits could end up paying for the health service, according to the world's top financial organisation. The International Monetary Fund pointed to the idea as a way of balancing the books if the government doesn't want to raise taxes on working people or abandon the pension promise. It suggested that future access to health services could depend more on individuals' capacity to pay. Any changes to the NHS, they said, would target higher income users while shielding the vulnerable. Most of us already do have to pay for certain things like dental work, for example, eye care, prescriptions, which are on the NHS. But should those who can afford it pay more money more often for more different treatments? Let's start with Penny on this one, I think.
I think this is such a difficult thing because the trouble is when we say wealthy, I think everybody goes to somebody who's more wealthy than them. Yeah. I mean, I think that the number of super rich people who absolutely could afford the NHS, you know, there is an argument to say, yes, if you are super rich, you should 100% be paying. But probably they're not even going to the NHS, those people.
Well, this is the thing,
and then as soon as you get into the people who are, you know, considered to be not badly off, then you're talking about means testing. At what limit do you set it? Is it wealthy if you've got property but you don't have any actual money? If you have children and you're struggling to pay childcare costs, and I know that from having conversations with people in the financial world that they all say the trouble is means testing and all that sort of thing eats up time, eats up money, you know, because obviously somebody somewhere is having to do something.
Although they could just look at the tax band you pay, for example,
well, you
couldn't they? That would be an indicator, especially if you're a working person.
But that doesn't necessarily mean you're wealthy. How about if you earn the same amount in a city and somebody who lives in a much cheaper place to live? You know, there are so many other examples. I think France has quite a good system. They have, everybody takes out, who can afford it, small health insurance, and then you pay for some things and you get it back if you can't afford it. I mean, you get the money back.
You know, JJ, people are absolutely wedded to the idea of free at the point of use with the NHS. It's kind of an empirical philosophy. I remember, Harold Wilson originally resigned over it because he was so offended when I think people had to pay for glasses. Yeah. This is when he was in an MP. And Aaron Bevan, I think, also, resigned in horror and disgust because every single thing was meant to be free at the point of use. Yeah. And I think lots of people would just be up in arms at the idea of anyone having to pay for NHS treatment. But it's also true that the wealthiest and those whose companies allow it and those who think it's worth paying, lots of people, if they can possibly, they do have health insurance and they use private healthcare for most things that go wrong with them. Yeah. So do you think this makes any sense as a way of recalibrating the economy?
No, I think you're absolutely right. Anyone who is classed as wealthy will already be skipping the NHS and going private. I get healthcare through my work, so I do it that way. But I still have to go through the NHS for some prescriptions, and I have to pay for them. But I can afford to pay for it. I think the people who cannot afford to already live currently should, of course, be still getting free healthcare. But saying we're going to charge wealthier people more cash, they're not using the NHS. If you're wealthy, you wouldn't go to the NHS. Yeah. Why would you? You get much better care going private anyway.
Well, I don't know if it's better care, but it's
faster.
Definitely faster care, definitely, and a certain different sort of species of care. But lots of people do think it isn't better, and they think, the top teaching hospitals all over the country have the top consultants, and private hospitals maybe have more agency staff. It's not necessarily better care. It's definitely quicker care, though.
I was just about to say, and also, if you book an appointment at 10 o'clock, you get seen at 10 o'clock. So it means that, that is a huge difference. And actually, for people who are working, when you're waiting for something and you're waiting a long time.
Nicky, people will feel indignant at the idea that people might be charged for NHS treatment. What do you think?
I personally think something has to give. The NHS is broken. We love the NHS. We don't want it to die. We want to keep it going, so we have to get money to fund it from somewhere. I personally think it shouldn't be just the wealthy should pay for the NHS. As JJ has said, the wealthy are going private anyway. That private income should be coming to the NHS if we were paying for it, but the wealthy aren't going to do that. Everyone should be paying something. Like you get on a bus, it costs you £1.50. Is it something like 30 million GP appointments a month? Now imagine if everyone just paid £1. Now when I say everyone, obviously that would have to be categorised. But if everyone just paid £1, there would be £30 million of revenue, £360 million over 12 months. The debt of the NHS is something like 1.8 billion. So you do the numbers on that, and actually very quickly, even a £3 an appointment very quickly taps that debt on the NHS. So I think we don't have a choice. You know, it's not a nice to have anymore.
And I think people often think about, you know, if you were at home, you'd have to pay for food. If you were at home, you'd have to launder your own sheets. If you were at home, you know, and then you're in hospital and the food is free and the laundry is free and the cleaning is free. You know, that kind of thing. You know,
Well,
you
I
have
have to except then you're into the worrying thing. What about people who, through no fault of their own, end up in hospital and then, you know, they're paying hand over fist and, you know, I mean, it all depends on where you set it, doesn't it?
And it has to be a flat fee almost.
And it has to be a flat fee.
It just has to be a flat fee.
It just needs to be, yes.
Just
maybe,
end off,
if you were
flat
going
fee.
to do it, then
But
that
many
would be the
people
way.
think they've been paying national insurance all their lives, and that is for the NHS, and they've already paid. Why the heck would they have to pay again? But on the other hand, if you look at a private bill, if you see the itemisation, you know, just for dressings, the price of the drugs, the price of the food.
Even things like gloves, the gloves that they put on.
And also the whole team in an operating theatre, the anaesthetists and the sisters and the nurses and the porters and everything. I mean, it's so unbelievably expensive, and we're all accustomed to getting it completely free. We walk home with no bill. I mean, it is absolutely miraculous when it goes well. It's remarkable. Let's go to Maria in Portsmouth. Hi, Maria. Thanks for ringing. What do you think? Is it right to make the rich pay?
No, it isn't. I spent a year in hospital. I had brain damage. I was in a coma for 6 months. What the hospital is amazing. The staff are absolutely wonderful, from the lower level to the top. But if we are asking the rich that pay high tax anyway to pay more, they will go out the country as quick as anything.
Well, already I think 16,500 very wealthy people have left this country already this year. That's in addition to the people who left last year and the people who are planning to go towards the end of the year and next year. So, you know, these incredibly wealthy people, they do have what the rest of us don't have, which is liberty and freedom to do whatever they like. They can just afford to leave. So they might well do so.
I'm a woman saying this who owe the NHS her life.
Right.
And I'm saying, but we have to say, if we keep going after the wealthy constantly, then it's unfair on them. They pay high anyway because of the tax they have to pay. What we need is a government doing a better job in running the country.
Maria, when you came out of hospital, did you say you'd been in there for 6 months?
No, I was in a coma for 6 months.
Oh, my God.
I learnt to walk again. I was in QA Hospital, amazing, in Portsmouth. Well done, QA.
Yeah, well done, absolutely. You're one of my best callers. I love the fact that you're well and healthy and phoning me. It's the best thing ever, Maria. I'm so pleased. I value you even more now I know what you've been through. I really do. But when you finally left and you had made this miraculous recovery, I'm assuming you had no bill to pay at all. You just left. Is that right?
I just walked out.
Lovely.
But my husband worked his life. I'd worked previously, but then I did a lot of Stafford charity work for the armed forces. So I did that voluntary. But the thing is, we can't keep asking the wealthy to keep paying for something. What we need is a government to get in place and do what's right for this country.
All right, Maria, thank you very much. Good to hear from you. Do you think she's right?
Yes and no. I think blaming the government is the easy thing to do. The wealthy, as we keep saying, are not going to be using the NHS. More likely than not, they're going private regardless. But
Unless, of course, there's an emergency. Because if you're in an accident or if you fall off a ladder or if you've got to have to dial an ambulance, that's going to be the NHS. So they will end up using the NHS.
I think the NHS is fantastic at dealing with emergencies. I think they are lacking.
And in COVID, of course, everybody had to use the NHS, even people with private healthcare, didn't they?
But I think they're lacking when you have to go with long-term illnesses. But I think maybe we should be charging, if you've got something wrong with you that is related to obesity, for example, then maybe we should be charging people for that instead.
And that's when it gets terribly complicated.
It has to just be a flat
That's when it gets, you were on a skiing holiday, you broke your leg, so you have to pay because it's your fault you went on holiday.
Exactly.
You know, it's your fault you had a Mars bar, so you have to pay. I'm not sure. Let's go to Trisha in Hertfordshire about this. Hi, Trisha. Hello.
Hi, yes, I'm here.
Yeah, OK. So what do you think? Do you think it's right that wealthier people ought to be charged to use the NHS?
Well, it's not just wealthier people, Vanessa.
Right.
Can I just explain to you? Number one, you look fab today, as always.
Gosh, thank you very much.
Hello, Nicky and Penny, and muzzle toff to the gentleman on the end.
Yeah, big fat muzzle toff to him. Absolutely. Congratulations. Go on, Trisha, carry on.
So, my daughter has a health problem.
Right.
We are fortunate to have private health care, but our private healthcare excludes her condition.
I know.
So every 6 months we do go to hospital, fantastic hospitals, and I would be happy to pay for that treatment. But I want to go to the front of the queue. I don't want to wait 7 hours.
Tell me, do you actually know how much it would cost you if you did pay? I mean, of course, you don't pay and you don't need to, and it's NHS. But if you did, would it be an enormous amount of money that you would have to pay?
The answer to that question is I don't know.
You don't know, you see, because nobody ever does need to know when you use the NHS.
It's very specialist treatment.
Yeah.
And when I say she's been under UCH, St Thomas's, you know, Charing Cross, serious hospitals.
Yeah.
For a serious problem.
And the very best hospitals, the top London teaching hospitals. She couldn't be getting better care, and she's getting it completely free, and you don't even need to know how much it would cost you if you paid for it, because it's NHS. Tricia, I hope she flourishes, and I hope you do too. Thank you so much for calling. Let's go to Pam in Suffolk. Pam, you used to work for the NHS. What do you think about charging richer patients?
Well, it's a very difficult one. I don't think people, you'll be able to charge the wealthy people, because actually, anyway, they are probably on private healthcare.
Right.
But should they have a road traffic accident and come into A&E, you're not going to say to them, well, you're wealthy, so we're not going to treat you, because we automatically treat people. I think what they need to look at is the cost of people like interpreters. We spent an awful lot of money at my hospital with interpreters for people who could not speak English. And I also think we need to check that they actually do reside in the country and have not come over from another country, and use a relative's address or a friend's address to be able to utilise the NHS.
Can I ask you, when you say that interpreters are very expensive, and I'm sure you're correct, what would happen if they didn't use them, though? Because obviously one of the crucial bits of medical care is the bit where they take your history and ask which bit hurts and what you're allergic to and, you know, what happened to you. And if you don't have an interpreter, Pam, how would that be okay? So isn't it an essential cost?
Well, if you're, for instance, if you are having a baby and you're having an elective cesarean section, for example, we used to have to wait for the interpreters. If you have been living in this country, you should be learning how to speak English. Surely you should have the basics. And I don't think that we are strict enough. If I went over to Spain or to the Philippines or America, I would be checked.
I mean, it's a little bit different for us because most people speak English all over the world. It's one of those situations where you'd be likely, if you were, heaven forbid, taken ill in Spain, to find that the person in Spain can speak excellent English and will be able to take your history. But if someone here were ill and didn't speak a word of English, then they're really in trouble if there is no interpreter. I suppose that's one way of looking at it.
Well, I was just wondering, this is, you know, so many people have talked about national identity cards, and this is perhaps one of those things where you could actually, if you had a national identity card, I know people get very hot under the collar about that, although they're perfectly kind of quick to sign up to free Wi-Fi, even though everybody takes your data. But, you know, the national identity card would actually stop this kind of health tourism, which actually does cause a problem, because then the National Health Service has to chase these people when they go back to wherever they've come from.